The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is a game that needs no introduction. Some call it the greatest video game ever made, and honestly, this game is pretty deserving of that title. Not only was it a revolutionary game for its time, but it's just aged really well and is still one of my favorite games to play to this day. But I played this game dozens of times, so I wanted a way to spice things up, and that's where retro achievements comes in. This website adds achievements like you would find in modern games to all your favorite nostalgic retro games. And this game has 97 achievements to collect, and to get them all we'll have to 100% the game, which is already a tall order. But we'll also have to go above and beyond 100%, doing additional challenges along the way, as well as having some unique interactions with NPCs, some of which I never even knew existed. We're even gonna have to run through the game a second time to do a 3-heart challenge. And in today's video, we're going to be getting every single achievement in this game, leaving no stone unturned as we explore everything the game has to offer. If you're new to the channel, my name's Nostalgic Juice. I'm on a quest to play all my favorite childhood games and get their retro achievements. So if you enjoy this type of content, then make sure you subscribe because I upload a video just like this every single week. With that said, sit back and grab a snack because we have a long journey ahead of us. Our story begins in the Kokiri Forest. The Great Deku Tree warns us of an evil power coming to fruition, and it's time for us to begin our quest to save the land of Hyrule. So he sends Navi the fairy to go find us. Here in the Kokiri Forest, everyone has a fairy companion, everyone except for our hero who doesn't even have a pillow or a blanket for his bed. Navi tells us we have to go see the Great Deku Tree, so we set out to go meet him, but not before flexing our brand new fairy to our friend Saria. Mido, however, is not as impressed. He refuses to let us meet the Deku Tree without equipping a sword and a shield. As we explore the forest, we come across this hole that we can crawl inside, and inside there, we find a chest that contains the Kokiri sword. It doesn't look like much now, but wait till you see what it can do to these wooden signs. To get a shield, we'll have to buy one from the shop, so after foraging for some rupees in the grass, robbing Mido's life savings, and even stealing the shopkeeper's hidden stash of rupees, we scrounge up enough money to buy the Deku shield. Now that we're properly equipped for the dangers ahead, Mido reluctantly agrees to let us pass, and we meet the Great Deku Tree. He tells us that he's been cursed, and we have to enter inside him to defeat the monsters inside and break the curse. Inside the Deku Tree, we see a hole in the ground covered by a web, and we have to figure out how to destroy it. As we climb up further, we come across the fairy slingshot, which we can use as a weapon as well as a tool for solving puzzles, like shooting down this ladder so we can get out of here. This slingshot is also how we're supposed to defeat these skulltulas, but if we're sneaky, we can climb past them undetected. This isn't an achievement or anything, but we're doing a challenge run anyway, so it might as well be. Further up the tree, we find our first golden skulltula. These are a special kind of enemy, and defeating them leaves behind a token. There's 100 of these tokens throughout the game, and we'll have to collect all of them for achievements. And now that we're high enough, we can jump down and destroy that web to get to the next area. And we also find 2 other golden skulltulas in the next room. Since this is only the first dungeon, it's not long until we're at our first boss of the game, and this is where we have our first side challenge achievement, for defeating Queen Gohma before she retreats to the ceiling. My first attempt, I decided to whack her with Deku sticks since these do more damage than our sword, but it wasn't enough to finish her off. In order to get this achievement, we first have to do a jumping attack with the Deku stick, then we have to pull out our shield and spam quick stabbing attacks. The reason why this works is because the quick stab actually copies the damage of your last attack. So each stab is doing just as much damage as a Deku stick. This is a really cool trick that I never even knew about, and we're going to be learning tons of fun facts about this game, as many of the achievements are designed around them. Defeating a dungeon's boss also gets us a heart container, which increases our total health, which will be another legging achievement once we collect them all. With the curse lifted, we head back to talk to the Deku Tree, who tells us about the man who cursed him. He's after the Triforce, a magical artifact created by the 3 goddesses, Din, Nehru, and Pharaoh. These goddesses created the land of Hyrule and then left behind the Triforce, which is now resting in the Sacred Realm. And this guy wants it so badly, he put a curse on the Deku Tree in order to obtain it. And even though we broke the curse, it was already too late, and the Deku Tree tells us that he's dying. In his final moments, he tells us that we have to visit Hyrule Castle to meet with the princess and gives us the Kokiri's Emerald, one of the 3 spiritual stones needed to access the Sacred Realm. News spreads fast in the Kokiri Forest apparently, as Mido is already blaming us for the death of the Deku Tree. So I think it's best we don't stick around and head out for the castle. On our way out of the forest, we bump into Saria, and after a heartfelt goodbye, she gives us her fairy ocarina, and then we're off to Hyrule Castle. Outside the forest, we meet Kapora Gabora, who appears every so often to help guide us in the right direction, which is helpful for first-time players, but to me, he's just a big unskippable cutscene. Once he's done yapping our ear off, we make our way across Hyrule Field, which was a huge hub world at the time. I mean, this game came out back in 1998, we didn't have open world slop games back then, so this was something truly spectacular. There's also this day-night cycle mechanic, and it actually takes us so long to get to the castle that it becomes nighttime and they close the gates on us. So I guess we're camping with some skeletons. In the morning, we're able to get into the castle town. And because they made me sleep outside, I decided to go into this room and smash up all their pots and steal their money. There's also another gold skulltula here, so yeah, I was totally just looking for that and not smashing pots for fun. Oh, apparently the guards are into it. Well hey, might as well leave and come back so I can do it again to fill up my wallet. In the town market, we see a bustling community full of people, and we can even visit some of the shops to play some games, which really highlight just how bad the aiming controls were. This is something the 3DS version of this game fixed really well with the motion controls. But we're on the Nintendo 64 version, and there's an achievement for getting the top score, so I had to lock in and get it. The targets appear in the same spot each time, so the trick is to just know where to aim ahead of time. After getting them all, we get an ammo upgrade and the Sniper Fury achievement. Now that we're done playing games, we head to the castle to go meet the princess, but the guard won't let us in. Man, I'm so mad, I could just roll into a tree. Oh look, a gold skulltula. Well fine, I didn't want to meet the princess anyway, so I headed back at the town where it's now nighttime. And we meet this lady who lost her dog, so we have to go find it. You might be wondering, how do we tell her dog apart from the rest? And that's the neat part, you don't. We just gotta bring her back every dog until it's the right one. I mean, come on lady, if your dog is so special, maybe put a collar on him. She gives us a piece of heart for finding him, but more importantly, we get an achievement for this little side quest. With our good deed for the day done, I headed back to the castle to try sneaking in again. And we meet a farm girl named Milan. She tells us her dad went missing and is probably taking a nap somewhere in the castle, and gives us a chicken egg. I just hope it doesn't alert the guards while I'm trying to sneak in. Oh, come on! Alright, well you know what? I'm done sneaking around, so I'm gonna bribe this guard to let us in. Who says money doesn't solve everything? Joke's on him though, this is just their own money I stole anyway. Just outside the castle, we find Milan's dad snoozing on the floor, so we use the chicken to wake him up and he takes off running. Now we can stack some boxes so we can reach this hole in the wall to sneak around inside the castle. And after getting past a few more guards, we can finally make our way to the courtyard to meet the princess. But first, a few Easter eggs. We can see a portrait of Mario inside this window, and we even get a red rupee for shooting at the window with our slingshot. I wonder what we'll get if we shoot the other window with our slingshot. Oh look, an achievement, that's cool. I didn't know about this little Easter egg, and wait, what, did he just throw a bomb at a child? How did you get past the guards is right. If they're packing firepower like that, it's a miracle that I made it here. It turns out Zelda was expecting us because she had a dream that she believes is a prophecy. She tells us some more lore about the Triforce and how it can grant the wishes of anybody who touches it, which obviously makes it pretty attractive to bad guys, so it was sealed in the Sacred Realm, which can be accessed through the Temple of Time, but in order to get to it, you have to open the door with the 3 spiritual stones as well as the Ocarina of Time. We also get our first look at the big bad of the game, Ganondorf, leader of the Gerudo, and the one who cursed the Deku tree trying to get his hands on the Kokiri Emerald. Unfortunately, nobody believes that Zelda's dream was a prophecy, so it's up to us to stop him. So we have to get the other 2 stones before Ganondorf does, so we can get the Triforce first and defeat him. So Zelda writes us a doctor's note to get out of school, and we're off to save Hyrule. Before escorting us outside, Zelda's attendant Impa teaches us our first song, Zelda's Lullaby, a song that will prove our connection to the royal family throughout the game. After that, we're back outside in Hyrule Field, and Impa tells us our next stone can be found at Death Mountain. And she suggests that we stop at Kakriko village before heading up there, so that's what we're going to do. And before heading to Death Mountain, we have to help Anju find her lost Kukos, not just for an achievement, but because it's the right thing to do. I don't think I've ever played this game and not helped her out. We round them all up and she gives us an empty bottle, which sounds lame, but bottles are actually a really useful item in Zelda games, so it's a really good prize. And of course we get an achievement for it as well. Speaking of achievements, we get another one by doing something that every Zelda player has done, attacking the Kukos and making them so mad that they attack us. But what I did next isn't an achievement, but it absolutely should be. I deserve like 100 retro achievement points for this. I managed to escape the town without getting hit a single time. I was absolutely juking these cuckoos. I didn't even know this was possible to do, nor do I know what even compelled me to try, but I was locked the hell in. I'm not even gonna cut the footage here, I need you all to see this. This is probably the most epic thing I've done on this channel. After the cuckoos calmed down, I headed back to the village and talked to the guard at the foot of Death Mountain. At first he wasn't gonna let us in, but I showed him Zelda's note and he changed his tune real fast. He even gave us a hot tip that we could pick up a better shield at Castle Town, and if we mention his name we can get a discount. Man, they must not pay these guards well enough if they're out here sharing affiliate codes. Well, unfortunately for him, I won't be buying a shield because there's an achievement for getting one for free. All we have to do to get that is to head to the graveyard and pull back this tombstone. Then we can jump inside the hole where we find a chest that contains the Hylian shield. Am I really gonna defile this grave for an achievement? Of course I am! Well, at least I'm not the only grave robber here. We also have Dante, who we can pay 10 rupees to dig a hole. And one of these patches of dirt contains a piece of heart, but it's random each time, so we have to dig as many holes as we can to find it. Dante's over here inventing blind boxes all the way back in 1998, and I spent over 100 rupees and still didn't get it. This guy is scamming us. I decided to head back to the castle to get some more rupees, which, little fun fact, you can find 40 of them just by walking up the chains and then jumping off of them. Or you can just go back to the jar room and smash everything, whichever sounds more fun to you. And while we're here, we can start a very long side quest that we'll be completing throughout the game. The Happy Mask Shop has a strange business model. We don't buy masks here, we rent them and then sell them to other people, hopefully for a profit. And then each mask that we sell gets us a new one. The masks in this game don't have any different effects like in Majora's Mask, but wearing them does cause NPCs to have different dialogue for us. And sometimes we even get rewarded for them, so I always like to start this side quest early. With our wallet full once again, I headed back to the graveyard to go gambling.
Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it. Aw, dang it.
Finally, after spending like 200 total rupees and way too much time, we got the piece of heart. And while it's nighttime in the village, I decided to go hunt down a few more gold skulltulas. Some of these do only spawn at nighttime, which means it's a good idea to check for them often. In fact, I found my 10th one up on this tower, which is enough to get our first prize, so now I can actually explain what these are for. Inside the house of Skulltula, there's a family who's been cursed. In order to break the curse, we have to defeat as many gold Skulltulas as possible, and every so often we can come back here for a reward. For destroying 10 of them, we get the adult wallet, so now we can hold even more rupees to lose the gambling minigames. Our side questing is almost done, we just have one more we can do here, and it's to talk to the guard while wearing the Keaton mask. It turns out this is a popular character and the guard's son has been talking about him. So the guard offers to buy our mask for 15 rupees, which is a nice 5 rupee profit as we now have to pay back 10 to the mask store. And yeah, that's another thing, we don't actually pay for the rental until we sell the mask. I don't know why, I told you this is a weird business model, but now we get the skull mask and it's finally time to get on with the main story and climb Death Mountain Trail. Halfway up the mountain, we make our way to Goron City, home of the Gorons, who are currently experiencing a food shortage. I don't really know why, they eat rocks and they live on a mountain, but I guess the Goron are picky eaters and only want to eat rocks from Dodongo's cavern, which has been blocked off by Ganondorf. So we try to meet with the leader of the Gorons to see if we can be of any help, but he woke up on the wrong side of the bed and is too grumpy to talk to us. Maybe if we put on a silly mask, that'll cheer him up. Damn, he really is grumpy. We gotta find a way to cheer him up. As we explore Goron City, we come across this path with bomb rocks that we can blow up to reveal a secret passage to the Lost Woods, which connects to the Kokiri Forest. There's multiple paths, and if we take a wrong turn, we'll end up back at the start. But we also hear a melody that gets louder as we get closer to the correct path, so all we have to do is follow the music and eventually we'll reach the Sacred Forest Meadow, where we meet up with Saria once again. She invites us to come play some music, and we learn Saria's song. I talk to her again wearing the skull mask, and she tells us she saw something familiar in the forest, so I decide to explore a bit before heading back. Deeper into the forest, I stumbled into a room with a stage, and if we wear any mask here, we get a different reaction depending on the mask. And they love our skull mask, so much so that they start swarming us, cheering for it. And if we talk to their leader, he gives us an upgrade that lets us carry more Deku sticks. There's a few other secrets and achievements to grab in the forest while we're here. We can get a second upgrade to our ammo by hitting this target 3 times and impressing the Deku scrub on top of the tree. Then we can play a musical memory game with these skull kids, which are actually children who got lost in the woods, which is a very creepy bit of lore, come to think of it. And I did all 3 rounds on my very first try without having to write down the answers. So I think I finally redeemed myself from the Banjo-Kazooie video where I kept messing up that Simon Says minigame. We can get another piece of heart if we play Saria's song with this other skull kid. Then if we talk to him again wearing the skull mask, he likes it so much that he buys it from us for 10 rupees, which is actually a loss since the mask cost us 20 rupees. But I mean, hey, what's the worst thing that can happen letting a skull kid get a good deal on a mask? And finally, our last secret for now is this business scrub under the bridge that leads to Hyrule Field. Most of these guys will sell random consumables, but this one actually sells another upgrade to our Deku sticks, so now we can carry 30 of them, and we get another achievement for this upgrade. Now that our business is done in the forest, we head back to Goron City and show Darunia our new song. And not even Mr. Grumpy Pants over here can resist jamming out to this sick beat. And now that he's in a better mood, we explain that we need the spiritual stone and he agrees to give it to us on one condition. We have to go inside Dodongo's cavern and slay the monsters inside. So to get in there, he gives us the Goron's bracelet, which will allow us to pick up bomb flowers. It's too bad there's not a pair of Goron glasses to go with it though, so I can actually hit this giant rock. You might think I'm just bad at video games, but if I was bad at video games, could I do this? Yeah, I bet you didn't know you can just jump on top of here without waiting for the magic beans, did you? With the cave open, we head inside Dodongo's cavern, home of these little exploding baby Dodongos. We can use one of them to blow up this wall to find a hidden room with a gold skulltula. There's also these older Dodongos, which is a great opportunity to show off the quick stabbing trick again. Because normally it takes like a dozen sword hits to kill these guys, but using the same trick we used against Queen Gohma, we can kill them in just a single stab. Deeper into the dungeon, I found another skulltula, and the next room is a good opportunity to switch to that Hylian shield, as our Deku shield can be burned off by fire attacks. The Hylian shield is also a lot stronger and can block attacks the Deku shield can't, but it's too heavy for Link to lift, so it has to stay on our back, meaning we can't do the quick stabbing trick while using it. For that reason, I prefer the Deku shield, and also the Hylian shield just looks dorky on Link. He looks like an elementary schooler with those oversized backpacks. But we'll use it for now. We also find the bomb bag here, which lets us use bombs freely without the need for bomb flowers. So now we can drop some bombs into the eyes of this giant skull to open up a room that leads to this dungeon's boss. So I grab another gold skulltula in there, which I didn't even see because I was busy bombing this other enemy, and then it's time to face this dungeon's boss. But of course, we cannot simply defeat him the normal way because we have an achievement for defeating him before he breathes fire at us, and without using bombs from our bomb bag. So I tried to run as fast as I could to grab this bomb flower, but I wasn't quick enough. It was close though, so that might be a possible way to get this achievement, but I like to work smarter, not harder. So on the next attempt, instead of going for the bomb, I ran right past King Dodongo, and since he can't turn around quickly, that causes him to roll around the entire stage. And that gives me the extra time I need to grab a bomb flower. Then using Deku sticks for extra damage, I only had to do this twice, and that was enough to defeat him and unlock the achievement. With the boss defeated, the Gorons can once again enter the cavern and feast on all the rocks inside. Darunia becomes our sworn Goron brother, and he gives us the Goron's ruby like he promised. That's 2 stones down, 1 to go. But we still have some unfinished business here still. First, we have the treasure room in Goron City. Normally to get inside there, we have to blow up some rocks at the entrance once we have our own bomb bag. But if we take the tight ropes instead of blowing up the rocks, we can get another achievement. Then by throwing a bomb in this rotating pot, we can grab a piece of heart. And while we're down here, I figured I'd get another achievement for buying the Goron tunic. But apparently we can't buy that now. What, my money's not good enough for you just because I'm a kid? Who cares if it's not my size? Whatever happened to the customer is always right. The last thing we have to do here is stop this rolling Goron with the well-placed bomb. He wasn't happy about it at first, but if we do it again, he gives us an upgraded bomb bag. Outside Goron City, we can continue to scale up the mountain through the active volcano, so it's a good thing we're still rocking this goofy Hylian shield. There's also more wall skulltulas, but you know what? I'm gonna make it my own personal achievement to beat the game without killing any of them. It's just more fun sneaking past them. I'm actually writing and editing this portion of the video before finishing the game, so I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I'm going to see if it is. At the top of Death Mountain, we meet the Great Fairy, who gives us a new spin attack move. This move consumes magic, which we now have access to as well. She also gives us a hot tip that she has a friend who lives in Hyrule Castle, and we should go meet her as well. Which isn't a bad idea, and we don't even have to walk back down the mountain because Kapora is here to give us a ride back to Kakriko village. Probably one of the only times we're actually happy to see him. I mean, I like him and all, but I played this game so many times, let me skip your dialogue. We head back to Hyrule Castle to go meet the other fairy who gives us a new attack, Din's Fire. This is one of the best items in the game. It creates this fiery dome that burns everything around us. It works on enemies and even lights up torches, which will come in handy later. And while we're back in Hyrule, I picked up the next mask from the shop, and while checking out some reactions to it, Anju tells us the kid playing in the graveyard was talking about this mask. So we sell it to him for 30 rupees, which is retail price, so far we've sold 3 masks, one for a 5 rupee profit, one for a 10 rupee loss, and one we broke even on. So we're still in the red, but listen, it's not about the money, it's about the achievements. And since we're here at the graveyard, we can play Zelda's Lullaby here at this tombstone, which causes it to be struck by lightning, revealing another hole we can jump into. Inside the royal family's tomb, we learn the Sun Song. This song lets us change the time of day, so we don't have to wait around if we need it to be day or night. I headed back to Hyrule Town to pick up the next mask, and decided before moving on to the next area, I'd take a break and hang out at Lon Lon Ranch. We see Milan again, and we get to meet Epona, who's shy at first, but Milan teaches us Epona's song, and now she can't get enough of us. This song has another use too. If we play it for any of the cows, they'll give us some milk if we have an empty bottle, which happens to be another achievement as well. And inside this room with the cow, we can rearrange these milk crates to reveal a hole in the wall that leads to another piece of heart. Speaking of empty bottles, we can win another one by playing a minigame with Milan's dad. He throws 3 super Kukos into a crowd of regular Kukos, and we have to find them in a time limit. How do you tell them apart? Once again, you don't. They look exactly like the other Kukos. Your only clue is watching the direction he throws them in at the start. I managed to get them all my first game to win another bottle full of milk, and not to brag, but I managed to make it to around the top 2,000 on the leaderboard. Which is another cool thing about retro achievements, there's also leaderboards for the minigames. So if you want to get competitive, that's another thing you can do in addition to the achievements. Then we meet Ingo, the dad's brother. There's no minigame or achievement or anything, but I thought it's funny how these guys look really similar to Mario and Luigi. Though Ingo is definitely more like Waluigi with how grumpy he is. Before moving on to the next spiritual stone, I decided to do a little backtracking and collect some of the gold skulltulas, many of which are hidden inside these soft patches of dirt that look like Cheez-Its. We'll have to catch a bug in our bottle and then let them out over these patches of dirt to flush out the gold skulltulas. A pro tip for this is if you let bugs out of your bottle, you always get 3 of them. So you can let them out, then catch 2 of them, and basically multiply your inventory of bugs. That way you never run out of them. After collecting 20 gold skulltulas, we headed back to the House of Spiders to collect our next reward, the Stone of Agony. Back on the original hardware, there is this thing called a Rumble Pack, which was an accessory that you plug into the Nintendo 64 controller, which adds vibrations to the controller to sort of add to the immersion. Nowadays, rumble in controllers is standard practice, but back in the day, that feature was sold separately, and if you had a Rumble Pack, then this Stone of Agony that we just got will let you know when you're near a secret grotto, which are hidden holes in the ground that lead to different secrets. Like for example, the stage where we saw the Deku scrubs who gave us the Deku stick upgrade. Now that we got some side questing done, I decided to move on with the story and head for Zora's River. And before making our way up the river, we spot this guy who's selling magic beans for the modest price of 10 rupees, and we get an achievement for buying one. But like a true capitalist, this guy slowly starts jacking up the prices with each bean that we buy. They're getting popular, 30 rupees. They're all the rage, 40 rupees. You'll regret if you don't buy it now, 50 rupees. I ended up spending all my money on these beans just to see what the next sales pitch was, though we do need these magic beans for 100% completing the game. What we do with them is plant them in these Cheez-Its, and then we come back to them later when they're fully grown. But now that my wallet's empty, I grab a nearby Kuko and make my way up the river. We can sort of glide when we jump with the Kuko, so we need him to get across the first jump. Then we can use him to grab 2 pieces of heart along the river, one of which requires a bit of precise timing as we have to drop him as soon as we're at this ledge. Then we can play a little mini game with these frogs. If we play any song that we know, they'll give us 50 rupees as a prize. Eventually, once we know more songs, we'll get a piece of heart off them, as well as another achievement, but for now we'll just fill our wallet back up, and we go right back to the bean guy to spend all our money. We have the legendary magic beans. I'll sell them only to you for the super price of 80 rupees. I even went back to Hyrule Castle to get more rupees, and this guy doesn't even try anymore. He's literally laughing in our face as we spend 100 rupees on a single magic bean. Thankfully, that's the last one, so we're now cut off from the magic beans and we can get back to focusing on the story. So we make our way up to Zora's domain, home of the Zora, who are an aquatic race of fish people. And their princess has gone missing, so we'll have to help find her. But first we can play a diving minigame where oh, that's right, I spent all my money on magic beans. Well, at least these guys just leave money lying around in pots all over the place. As I was saying, we can play a diving minigame where we have to collect all the rupees, which is a nice profit considering we paid 20 rupees and there's 25 to collect. But more importantly, our prize for winning is the silver scale. With this, we can dive even deeper underwater, deep enough that we can go through the secret passage that leads to Lake Hylia. And here in the lake, we can dive down and find a bottle containing a letter from the missing Princess Gerudo. It turns out she's inside Lord Jabu-Jabu, the guardian of the Zoras. With this information, the Zora King asked us to go see Lord Jabu-Jabu to rescue the princess, and you can tell how worried he is by how fast he scooches over to let us pass. Now I know why they won't remaster this game. With attention spans at an all-time low, they'd have to throw up some Subway Surfers gameplay and Family Guy clips or something here. So we head outside and feed Lord Jabu-Jabu a fish, and then he sucks us up so we can begin the next dungeon inside Jabu-Jabu's body. And it's not long before we find our missing princess, Gerudo, who doesn't want to come with us, and as she tries to get away, she falls down a hole, so I guess we're stuck here with her. But we can pick her up and carry her around, and she makes one hell of a weapon against the enemies in here. In fact, most of the enemies in this dungeon are electrified, so we get hurt by damaging them with our sword, so throwing the princess is just as useful as it is silly. So that's pretty much the gimmick of this dungeon, finding out how to carry Princess Gerudo with us and sometimes using her to our advantage. If we ever get too far separated, like say you accidentally throw her into the water to kill an enemy, but then she sinks and disappears, she'll appear back where we found her the first time. And then she'll give us a scolding for leaving her behind. Look lady, it's not my fault, you're literally a fish person, I thought you can swim. Sometimes we have to use Gerudo to hold down switches so we can access locked rooms. Like this one where after defeating a few enemies, we get the boomerang as a prize, which is a much better way of dealing with these electrified enemies since this one won't yell at me for leaving it in another room for too long. We also have to be careful in this dungeon and make sure that we get the compass and dungeon map as soon as possible. Every dungeon has these items and they're not required or anything, but we do have an achievement for finding all of them in the game. And the thing is, once we're done with this dungeon, we can't come back with Princess Gerudo, so any room that requires her to push down a switch will be inaccessible, which means these items are missable if we don't get them before this room where we find the spiritual stone. Because once we throw Gerudo up there to go grab it, she gets captured and replaced by a giant Octorok mini-boss. To defeat him, we just have to catch up with him and stun him with the boomerang. We can also slow him down with bombs to speed up that process. Defeating the Octorok opens up the path back to the start of the dungeon, and from there we can reach the big boss of the dungeon, Baronade. And of course, no boss is complete without a retro achievement challenge. For this one, we simply have to defeat him without taking any damage. Not the most creative achievement, but it still provided a decent challenge as avoiding this guy's attacks is difficult. This fight has 4 phases. The first phase, all we have to do is cut the 3 tentacles with the boomerang. Then he starts swinging around these jellyfish and we have to wait for an opening to stun him with the boomerang. Then once he's stunned, we have to destroy all the jellyfish, then we repeat that process for phase 3, this time with him being more aggressive. Until finally in phase 4, we just have to dodge his lightning blast and deal the finishing blows. But what makes this challenge hard is 2 things. First, there's no good defense against these attacks. Even the Hylian shield doesn't block electric attacks, so dodging them is our only option. And second, the camera can be pretty hard to work with in this fight, leading to a lot of hits to the back of the head when your back is turned. That's why when we're in phase 2 and we get an opening, you'll see me Z-targeting jellyfish but not attacking them, because their purpose is to just keep the camera aligned, otherwise you're going to be struggling trying to target all of them. It's easier to target one and then don't destroy it until it's the last one, that way you have a more consistent camera angle. Another tip is to use Deku nuts instead of the boomerang to deal the jellyfish. It's a faster attack, and you can even get a 2-for-1 if you aim it just right. Despite these tips, this is still a pretty difficult challenge, and since we're playing in hardcore mode on retro achievements, we can't use save states. So to save time, I actually took a detour to pick up an item that we can get from a fairy fountain behind Lord Jabu-Jabu. And I don't know if this was supposed to be obvious or not, but you can actually leave Lord Jabu-Jabu by walking out of his mouth. It seems so obvious now, but I always thought as a kid that you were stuck in here. But if we leave and blow up this wall near these rocks, we can access the fairy fountain, and inside there, the Great Fairy gives us Pharaoh's Wind. Another magic ability, but unlike Din's Fire, this isn't just an attack. What it does is it allows us to set checkpoints in dungeons. So in the room just before the boss fight, we can set a checkpoint. That way if we fail and have to restart, we don't have to walk all the way back to try again. We can simply use Pharaoh's Wind to warp back to the room, which saves us time between attempts. I also recommend if you're failing this challenge, don't immediately reset to try again. Spend some time just dodging attacks and practicing. This achievement is just about patience. It's tempting to try to speedrun it and get it done as fast as possible to minimize the time spent, but that kind of rushing is going to lead to more failed attempts. It's a hard achievement, but with patience and practice, it's not as difficult as it seems on your first attempt. I would say the hardest part is transitioning from phase 3 to 4, because after killing the last jellyfish, you have to reposition yourself to target Baronade himself, while he's just spraying down electric attacks like crazy. Once you got your target locked though, just keep moving and he won't be able to get you with an electric attack. You can also use Deku sticks to deal more damage as well. The stabbing method that we use on Queen Gohma probably works here too, but I don't like having to get that close to him because if you touch him, you take damage, so I just played it safe. And after many attempts, we finally got the achievement. Definitely our hardest achievement so far, and we're not even halfway through all the achievements. With the boss dealt with, we saved Princess Gerudo, Lord Jabu-Jabu is back to normal now that all the monsters are gone, and Gerudo agrees to give us the Zora Sapphire, so now we have our last spiritual stone. And this stone also happens to be the equivalent of a Zora's engagement ring, so I guess Link got himself a wife too. But the honeymoon will have to wait because now that we have the boomerang, we can pick up some more gold skulltulas that we missed, because a lot of these are out of reach and require the boomerang to get to them. We even have to return to the Deku tree, who's now a rotting corpse, but we can still get inside of him, and now that we have bombs, we can access a room with another gold skulltula. And now that we have 30 gold skulltula tokens, we head back to the House of Spiders again to pick up our third reward, the Giant's Wallet. Now we can hold up to 500 rupees, which would have been useful back when we were spending all our money on magic beans. Now that we have the 3 spiritual stones, we head back to Hyrule Castle to go see Zelda, but before we can get there, we see her and Impa being chased out of the castle. Zelda throws the Ocarina of Time into the river for us, and then we see Ganondorf. He asks us which way Zelda went, but of course Link has Deku Nuts of Steel and challenges Ganondorf to a fight. And he has no problem beefing with the child, and he blasts us with a ball of light before taking off after Zelda. Before grabbing the ocarina, I headed back into town for a missable achievement, and I was surprised to see everyone just going about their business as usual. The music is all upbeat and cheerful, even when we're in the back alley talking to this soldier who's literally dying in the street. In all my years of playing this game, I never knew this guy was here, and they don't sugarcoat this either. After he gives us his final message, he literally dies in front of us. Like, hello, people? A guy just died in the alley back there? Is anyone gonna do anything about that? No? It's weird because if you try to go back into the castle, there's additional guards posted preventing us from getting inside. And there's even some additional dialogue for the gatekeeper who now won't let us pay to sneak in the courtyard. So some of the NPCs seem to be aware of what happened with Zelda and Ganondorf, but the rest of the town just doesn't seem to be bothered. We head outside and dive down to grab the Ocarina of Time that Zelda left behind for us, and somehow the Ocarina contains a memory of Zelda teaching us the Song of Time. Thankfully, Link is a quick study, because I don't know what the backup plan was if he didn't learn the song after hearing it only once. So now we have to go to the Temple of Time and do all that important stuff with the spiritual stones, but I mean, as long as the town's still open for business, we might as well play some minigames. I mean, Zelda's fine, she got a head start, I'm sure Ganondorf's not catching her anytime soon. So now we get to play Bomb Chew Bowling. Bomb Chews are these little bomb mouse things that we can drop, and then they run down in a straight line until they hit something. And the goal of this game is to get it to blow up inside the target, which requires good timing and a little bit of luck to dodge all the obstacles, especially the giant chicken in the back. You have to wait for him to be out of the way and then just pray he doesn't walk back in front of your bomb. I did manage to win on my first try to get us an achievement as well as some bomb chews, but we actually have to win this game 2 more times for 100% completion. If dodging the Cuckoos is too difficult, there's a trick where if you line link up just right, you can throw the bomb chew at the wall and it'll bypass all the obstacles, but getting the angle right is really difficult. I did it by standing between the 4th and the 5th black line on the floor, and then just making very small micro adjustments to the angle after each throw. Eventually I found the sweet spot and won the game 2 more times, one for a piece of heart and one for another bomb bag upgrade and another achievement. With that out of the way, we head to the Temple of Time. With the 3 spiritual stones and the Song of Time, we can now open the door to the chamber that contains the legendary Master Sword. So we pull the sword out of its pedestal and we're transported to the Sacred Realm. In the Chamber of Sages, we meet Rauru, who explains that we weren't old enough to go on this ride, so our spirit has been sealed here for 7 years, and Link is now an adult. So I guess I missed my wedding with Gerudo. Also, now that we opened the door to the Sacred Realm, Ganondorf was able to just follow us inside, so maybe we should have just left that closed on second thought. Ganondorf now possesses the Triforce and has deemed himself the King of Evil and transformed Hyrule into a world of monsters. So what we have to do now to defeat him is track down all the sages, and instead of collecting stones, we're now collecting medallions, and Rauru gives us our first one to get us started. Back at the Temple of Time, we meet Sheik, the last survivor of the Sheikahs, and he tells us where to find our first sage, who's somewhere in the forest. So now we know where our next objective is. But he tells us that we first have to head to Kakriko village to find another skill first, so that's our next stop. But not before taking a stroll through Hyrule Castle and seeing what Ganon's done to the place. See, this is the kind of vibe I was expecting when Zelda was making her escape. A lot's changed in 7 years. With Hyrule in ruins, all the people living there migrated to Kakariko village. Some things stay the same though, like Anju, who's still in the Kuko business. And she's developed a new type of pocket Kuko. You look like you're good at handling Kukos. I mean, not to brag, but I am the champion at Kuko dodging. So she gives us our very own pocket egg, which we'll hold on to for now. If we head to the graveyard, we can jump into this grave and meet up with the ghost of Dampé. He must have scammed the wrong person with his graveyard lottery because now he's dead. He challenges us to a race through the tomb, and if we can keep up with him, we'll get a prize. It's not too difficult. In fact, it's not even really a race. We just have to not fall too far behind. He is a jerk for throwing out these fireballs to slow us down, but we're able to stay with him, and when we reach the end, we get the hookshot, which is the treasure we've been looking for. But before we get a chance to use it, on the way out of the grave, we end up in the windmill, where we meet this guy who is all pissed off because some kid with an ocarina came here 7 years ago and played this song that made a storm happen inside the windmill. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that does not sound like it's worth holding a 7-year grudge. And he teaches us the Song of Storms that pissed him off so much in the first place, so now we get to make him mad at us too. And that's another 7 years of rage for this guy, I guess. Kakariko Village isn't the only place that's had some changes over the years though. Remember the angry guy at Lon Long Ranch? Well, now he's in cahoots with Ganondorf and he's taken over the farm. We can pay him to hang out with the horses and go for a ride, and if we play Epona's song, we can see that she's also here all grown up as well. We can even challenge Ingo to a race if we talk to him. Beating him isn't too hard, you have to stick to the inside of the track close to the wall and then look for an opening to get ahead of him. And once you're ahead, you just keep him behind you and don't let him pass. But he doesn't take the L gracefully. Instead, he demands a rematch, this time betting the horse if we win. I can't really tell if he's any faster on the second race or not, but we beat him in the same way, just hugging the inside of the track and then passing when we see an opening. And Ingo does honor the deal and agrees to give us Epona, but he locks us inside the ranch and says we're not allowed to leave. So now we have to spend the rest of our life living on the farm. If only I was carrying an arsenal of weapons and had the combat experience necessary to take on a farmer. Oh well, since that's not an option, we'll have to find a way to escape. So we jump the fence with Epona, and just like that, we're free, and we got another achievement. We ride Epona all the way back to the Kokiri forest, and even our hometown isn't the same. Since the Deku tree has been dead for 7 years, the forest is overrun with monsters, and since the Kokiri children never age, they're just stuck hiding inside. But come on, that's just skill issues. I'm just saying I was killing these things when I was a kid. We head to the Lost Woods to make our way to the Sacred Forest Meadow, and just like the good old times, Mido is here to block us from passing. But he lets us through after we convince him that we're friends to Saria by playing her song for him. And since we have bombs now, we're able to blow up this rock on the way to the meadow, and underneath it is a secret grotto where we find a couple business scrubs, one of which who will sell us a Deku nut upgrade, which gets us another achievement as well. But we're not here to simply hunt for achievements. We're here to make our way to the Sacred Forest Meadow where we learn Saria's song, only this time we meet Sheik here instead, and he teaches us the Minuet of Forest, which isn't as catchy as Saria's song, but it'll allow us to warp back here, so it's pretty useful. Especially considering that this place is the entrance to the Forest Temple. Though whoever built it must really not want visitors because they didn't even put in a staircase. So it's a good thing we have that hook shot, which we can finally bust out so we can get inside. Inside the Forest Temple's main room, we encounter some Poes who each take a color flame from the center platform and scatter across the temple. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of ghost busting. It's a good thing I've mastered Luigi's Mansion, so I'm very prepared for this. We also have another wall to climb outside with more wall skulltulas, and I'm happy to say I was still able to navigate around them without killing them. I don't know how many more of these we have to go, but if I go the whole game without killing any of these, that's gotta be a new achievement. It's actually a lot more fun trying to dodge these guys. We find our first Poe inside these paintings, but before we can deal with him, we have to find another item which is in the next room. We just have to defeat some of these Stalfos enemies. I do like these fights a lot though. The second wave, we have a 2 versus 1, and once we kill one, we only have a few seconds before it respawns. So we have to damage both enemies evenly and try to take them out at the same time. If I had one criticism for this game, and I know that's a very dangerous thing to do because everyone says this is the greatest game of all time and implying otherwise is grounds from being banished from the Cool Kids table. But if I had one criticism for this game, it would be the combat is kind of boring. Almost every enemy in the game boils down to wait for the opening and then attack to defeat them. I'm not saying I want some crazy combo-centric hack and slash type combat or breakable weapons like in the new Zeldas, but I think these guys are a good example of how you can spice up the combat. Having to juggle 2 enemies at once and making sure you're distributing the damage equally is a nice little challenge, and I would have liked to see more fights like this. Once we defeat all of them, we get our prize, which is the Fairy's Bow. This is basically the slingshot, but for adults. Come to think of it, I don't know why adult Link can't just use the slingshot. I guess he's too cool to be seen playing with a child's toy. But now that we have the arrows, we can start ghost hunting by shooting every painting that the Poe appears until there's none left. And once it's exposed, we have another really fun battle that's just waiting for it to expose itself so we can attack it. And our second Poe is in the room across the hall and we defeat it in the exact same way. Which again, hypothetically, if I was going to criticize this game, I would say this is an example of what I was just talking about. For the third Poe, we have to solve a sliding block puzzle to match the picture on the wall, and there's a 5th block not part of the puzzle just to throw us off. I managed to get it on the first try with 5 seconds to spare, and then we take out the third Poe. And the last one is back in the main room waiting for us, and he wastes no time getting right into a fight. He surrounds us with these doppelgangers, and we have to identify the real one by paying attention to its super subtle tell where he spins around in a circle every time he spawns. Yeah, don't take this guy to poker night. Despite it being easy though, I do like that it's different from the last 3 Poe fights. Once he's defeated, we're able to ride the elevator down and get to this temple's big boss, the Phantom Ganon. And the retro achievement challenge this time is pretty weird. We have to get him down to 1 health left using only bottles and arrows, which at first glance sounds really weird. Arrows make sense, but bottles? Well, as strange as it sounds, we can use an empty bottle to deflect his attacks. You would normally be using your sword to do this, and it's actually a lot easier because your sword has a bigger hitbox than a bottle. But for some reason, the bottle works too. And once you deflect enough attacks to stun him, you simply blast him with arrows until you get him down to 1 health left and the achievement pops. You can't actually finish him off with the arrows though, so you do have to deal the final blow with a sword, and once we do that, the fight is over and that wraps up the Forest Temple. And again, hypothetically, if I was criticizing the combat in this game, I would say this is a great example of fun combat where you have to do more than simply wait for an opening. Ganondorf banishes the Phantom to the gap between dimensions, and then we're transported back to the Chamber of Sages where we see Saria once again, who's now been promoted to the Sage of the Forest. She gives us the Forest Medallion and sends us back to Kokiri Forest. And since we broke the curse on the Forest Temple, a new Deku tree has sprouted, so the forest will be safe once again. The Deku Sprout drops the news bomb that we are not Kokiri, we are in fact Hylian, as if we couldn't tell that by the fact that we're not a kid anymore. The Sprout tells us that a long time ago, there was a war in Hyrule, and during that time, our mother was injured and had no choice but to leave us here with the Deku tree. The tree sensed that we were a child of destiny, so he took us in and raised us as a Kokiri. And thank God for that, because if we were just a normal non-destiny child, it sounds like the Deku tree would have let us burn. Before moving on to the next temple, I decided to go back to visit Dampé to grab an achievement that we missed. This time we have to make it to the end of his race in under 1 minute. And this one is a bit harder. If you make a mistake, you're pretty much out of it. But there is a less honest method of doing this. If we play any fast travel song like the Minuet of Forest, we get a text prompt saying that we can't do that in here. But while this text prompt is on screen, the countdown on the clock pauses. So if we just spam this over and over again, we have all the time that we need. And yes, this is cheating technically, but Dampé scammed me out of like 200 rupees during his stupid graveyard digging game, so I consider this payback. Speaking of payback, I decided to stop by Lon Lon Ranch again to give Ingo a piece of my mind, but it turns out after his embarrassing loss, he's no longer in charge. In fact, I don't know what they did to him. He has a complete change of heart all of a sudden. They must have given him a lobotomy or something. But Milan's back and happy to see us, and things seem to be back to normal at the farm. If we talk to her while riding Epona, she offers us to attempt an obstacle course, and if we can beat the high score of 50 seconds, we get a prize. The obstacle course is a bit tricky. We have to jump over all the fences, and if we don't approach them just right, Epona won't jump over them. You want to take the jumps head on and not at an angle, and it's best to be going at full speed, so you want to jump shortly after giving her a boost. It took a few attempts to get the hang of it, but after a few tries, I managed to finish in 49 seconds, and that got us an achievement. And apparently our prize is too big to be given here, and it was delivered to our house? And that is a whole cow just hanging out in our studio tree apartment. How'd they even get this thing up the ladder? Well, now that that's taken care of, it's time to make our way to the next temple up Death Mountain. I decided to stop by Goron City to see what's new, but everyone is gone. Everyone except this small rolling Goron who's very good at dodging bombs. Eventually we hit him with one and that stops him in his tracks, and he tells us his name is Juice. It turns out this little guy is Darunia's son, and he named him Juice after us. Little Juice tells us that Ganondorf took all the Gorons and locked them in the fire temple to offer them up as sacrifices to Volvagia, the fire dragon who lives inside the temple, who was once defeated by a legendary Goron hero, but has been revived by Ganondorf. He asks us to go to the fire temple to save everybody and gives us the Goron tunic for free. I bet that Goron that wouldn't sell me one 7 years ago is feeling really stupid right now. So we pull the statue in Darunia's room, which reveals a secret shortcut to Death Mountain Crater, and just outside the fire temple we meet Sheik once again, who teaches us another fast travel song, the Bolero of Fire. You know, come to think of it, that must be how they got the cow in my house. There's gotta be a symphony of milk or something like that. So we head inside the fire temple, and soon after we meet up with Darunia. He's here to try to put a stop to Volgaria too, and he asks us to rescue all the Gorons in the temple while he goes on ahead. I don't know how he's able to go in there without the boss key though, he must be using Game Shark. Throughout the temple, we gotta keep an eye out for these prison cells which contain the captured Gorons. I mean, technically we don't have to free the Gorons, we just need the small keys that are usually locked up with them, but we are sworn Goron brothers, so we'll free the Gorons anyway. The fire temple is honestly the most straightforward temple. I never find myself getting lost in here, so there's not much to talk about as we make our way through. Though I did notice something while playing. The music in the background was different from what I remember. I looked it up and it turns out in the original version of the game, which is the one that I'm playing, the Fire Temple's music has this Arabic chanting in the background. And I'll crank it up so you can hear it. This chanting translates to, "I bear witness that there's no god but Allah," which is obviously a religious reference and Nintendo wants to avoid those in their games, but this one somehow slipped through the cracks. So in the 1.1 version of the game, they changed the music to remove the chanting, and I guess that's the version I grew up with, and this is what it sounds like now. Personally, I like the newer music better. I think it fits the vibe of the Fire Temple more, but it's really cool to learn something new about the game after all these years. Like all the temples, we get a new toy to play with, and this time it's the Megaton Hammer, a heavy two-handed weapon that the Goron champion used many years ago to defeat the dragon Volgaria. We can use it to move these statues that are covering doors, or to press down rusted switches. It also makes for a fun weapon to use against enemies. And we'll need it to take on the boss of the temple, who we already know is Volgaria. And we have a pretty good challenge for this one. We have to defeat him without wearing the Goron tunic. The Goron tunic protects us from fire, so without it we can only survive for a little over a minute, so it basically turns this fight into a speedrun. The amount of time that you have is determined by how many hearts you have, so you could opt to hunt down every available piece of heart prior to this fight to give yourself more time, but I thought I had enough, so I decided to give it a try. And I managed to attack him only twice before running out of time and burning myself to death. I really like this challenge because there's a lot of different ways you can approach it. Obviously, my first thought was to go get some fairies. These heal you when you die, so that's an easy way to extend your clock. But we can also do another cheesy trick to pause the time. If we use our Din's Fire, it doesn't damage Volgaria, but during the animation, he's still moving around in the background, and the timer gets paused just like in the Dompe race. So we can use this to stretch out our time by a few seconds, though we don't have unlimited uses since this costs magic. And if you're wondering why not just play fast travel songs like last time, we can't do that because the Ocarina can't be used during boss fights. But Din's Fire plus the fairies we collected was enough to defeat the boss with about 13 seconds left to spare, and we got the achievement. With Volgaria defeated, we get another medallion from Darunia, who is now the Sage of Fire. I completely forgot that he went in to fight Volgaria first. I guess his Game Shark hacks didn't help him win the fight. Also, I felt kinda dumb because I warped all the way back to the Forest Meadow to get those fairies, but there was a fairy fountain right here in Death Mountain Crater behind these rocks which we can break with a hammer. And inside that fairy fountain we get a magic upgrade which doubles the amount of magic we have, so I could have used a lot more Din's Fire during that fight. Our next temple is the infamous Water Temple, so before tackling that headache, I decided to take a break and do some side questing to knock out a few achievements along the way. Our first stop is the shooting gallery that is now located in Kakriko village. The game is pretty much the same except now that we're an adult, we use arrows instead of a slingshot, and once we win, we get a quiver upgrade which lets us hold more arrows. Next we head to Lake Hylia, which is now almost completely dried up thanks to Ganondorf. I came here to do the fishing minigame, but first I realized I never did the Scarecrow side quest as a kid. Thankfully we can go back to the Temple of Time where Sheik explains that we can place the Master Sword back into its pedestal and that will allow us to go back in time 7 years back to when we were a kid. He also teaches us the Prelude to Light, which lets us fast travel back to the Temple of Time. So we put our sword back where it belongs and we're back to our childhood days. And as we made our way back to Lake Hylia, I stopped by the frogs along Zora's river. They really liked the Song of Storms that we learned from the guy in the windmill, so much that they gave us a piece of heart. But there's one more thing that we can do here which I actually never knew about. If we talk to them, they'll ask us to play a mini game where we have to play a note that corresponds to the frog with a fly above its head. And you do have to play these notes fast, so this would be really difficult if not for the fact that the flies are always in the same locations each time you play, so it just takes some trial and error to figure out the correct notes. And once we clear the minigame, we get another piece of heart and an achievement to go along with it. Back at Lake Hylia, before we do the Scarecrow thing, I decided to grab a quick achievement for playing the fishing minigame. We have a few achievements for fishing, but most of them we'll get as an adult. But for now, we just have to catch a fish that weighs at least 10 pounds as young Link. And the biggest fish in the pond is always going to be in the same spot, right near this underwater log with the branch barely sticking out. And we caught him on our very first try and got the achievement. Man, I sure hope the rest of the fishing achievements go this smoothly. But for now, we head back outside where we can talk to these scarecrows named Bonoru and Pierre. Bonoru lets us create our own song, which will become the Scarecrow song. It doesn't matter what notes you choose, you just have to pick 8 of them, so pick something you'll remember. Then if we come back here as an adult and play that same song, he'll remember us and we'll get an achievement. And now that we've done all this, we can summon Pierre the Scarecrow in specific locations. If you see Navi turn green and fly over what appears to be nothing, that usually means you can summon the Scarecrow there. And you can use your hook shot to get up to where he is, so it's a good way to find stuff like golden skulltulas or pieces of heart. And speaking of those gold skulltulas, after doing a bit of backtracking to grab the ones that we missed, we just hit 50 of them in total, which is enough for our next 2 rewards, a bomb shoe upgrade that lets us carry more of those, and a piece of heart. And this is going to be our last time here for a while, as our next reward won't come until we found all 100 gold skulltulas. Personally, I've never even gotten this many before, and I was surprised to see the big spider in the middle is so thankful that we saved all of his kids, that they tell us not to even worry about saving them. Which is very sweet, but listen buddy, I got achievements riding on this, so you better believe I'm gonna find them all. But okay, that's enough goofing around for now. We do have a kingdom to save, so it's time to get back to the main quest, which takes us back to Zora's domain. Only now, everything is frozen solid. Even the king is stuck in a big block of ice. And Lord Jabu-Jabu is nowhere to be seen either. This is just not a great time to be a Zora. If we platform our way across these floating ice platforms, we can make it to the ice cavern, which is like a mini temple, just a little appetizer for the water temple coming up ahead. Here we find some blue fire, which is a magic fire that we can keep in our bottles, which melts the red ice. Aside from that, it's a quick and easy dungeon. I mean, the boss of it is just a normal enemy that literally gets stabbed once and then dies. And once he's defeated, we get the iron boots, which is what we need to access the water temple. And right on cue, Sheik comes in to teach us a brand new song that can fast travel us there, the Serenade of Water. Now that we have some blue fire, we can free the Zora King, but instead of doing that, we're first gonna melt the ice blocking the shop. Surprisingly, the shopkeeper is still alive in there, and he's clocked in. Brother, there's nobody left, why are you still working? We pick up a Zora tunic for 300 rupees, which will let us breathe underwater. And the reason why we did this first is because normally when you free the Zora King, he gives you the Zora tunic as a reward. But if we already have one, then there's some alternate dialogue where he offers us a kiss instead. Which, you know, I'm flattered, but Link is already married to Gerudo still, I think? I mean, I don't know, 7 years is a pretty long time to keep a lady waiting. But she'll have to wait just a little bit longer because before the water temple, I wanted to knock out the rest of the fishing achievements. Thankfully, this place is still in business because apparently I'm their only customer. But that just means they can't afford to lose me, so I can do whatever I want, like yoinking this guy's hat right off his head and then dunking it into the pond for an achievement. Now we have to catch a large enough fish to get us the golden scale as a prize. Just like before, the fish we're after is this one near that log with the branch poking out. But unlike last time, this one was all of a sudden the most difficult thing for me to do. Just getting him to even acknowledge the lure was hard enough, but every time I got him, he kept breaking away. I tried looking online for some pro gamer tips, but it wasn't much help. Literally everyone has their own method of fishing. Some people say to just hold down the A button and the control stick, others say to move the control stick away from the fish, some say to stand on the log so it's less distance, others say to stand on the outside. There's just not much of a clear consensus on the best way to fish, and it took me a long time to get this one. What ended up working for me was standing on the log in the water and holding the A and R buttons down once the fish bites, then holding back on the thumbstick but slightly to the left. I found that if the fish got caught on the right side of the log, it would always snap off the line for some reason. So that's why I wanted to keep pulling to the left to try to direct it to that side. And that worked, at least for me anyway. Your mileage may vary. I think this is just one of those crappy Nintendo 64 minigames that nobody really knows for sure how it works. But this worked for me, and we got a gigantic 20-pounder fish, which was more than enough. So after we turned it in, we got the golden scale, which lets us dive even deeper underwater. But we're not out of fishing hell just yet, because now we have to track down the rare Hylian loach. This one's kind of interesting. First off, it only appears every 4th time you play the minigame, and you do actually have to pay to play the game, not just enter and leave, so it's going to cost you 80 rupees each time you attempt for 4 games. On every 4th game, you'll find the loach in these lily pads. He's really hard to see, but if you look close, you'll see a longer fish, and that's who you're looking for. You want to make sure that you don't scare him away either. If another fish grabs your lure before he does, just do nothing and let it get away. If you start to reel in the wrong fish, that's going to scare away the loach. And when they get scared, they go to the middle of the pond and they sink all the way down to the bottom. There is a secret weighted lure that you can find by standing in specific spots that lets you get your line all the way down to the bottom of the pond, but when I tried that, he just didn't care, even if it was right on top of him. So in my opinion, it's a lot easier to get him when he's at his starting spot. What you can do to make your life a little easier is when you know you're on the 4th visit, before paying to play the fishing game, save your game first. That way if you fail, you can just reload your save file and the loach should still be there. You'll have to go all the way back each time you do this, and in hindsight, I probably should have done this after the water temple. That way it makes your retries faster since you're starting from the water temple entrance, but I was stubborn and determined to get this stupid thing. And after a few more tries, we finally caught this beast, and after turning him in, we got the achievement. And finally, after like 2 hours of fishing, we can move on to the water temple. Man, I never thought I'd be relieved to be doing this temple. And inside the water temple, we meet Princess Gerudo. I just hope she isn't too mad that we left her at the altar. She's here to try to take on the water temple and save the Zora's domain as well, but she doesn't have the Prima strategy guide. So after she swims away, she gets lost in the temple and is never seen again. This temple has a reputation for being the hardest temple in the game, but I kind of disagree. It's not all that difficult, but it is very tedious and annoying. You're constantly having to open up the menu to equip or unequip the iron boots so that you can walk underwater, oftentimes just doing that for a few seconds to make it through one hallway, then you got to slowly float back up to the surface. And then the big gimmick of this temple is there's 3 points where you can raise or lower the water level, which opens up new areas, so if you're not following a guide and playing optimally, you're gonna end up having to backtrack to those rooms a dozen times to keep changing the water levels, which makes what should be a 30-minute temple take hours to complete. It's a shame that this temple is so universally hated because it has one of the most memorable mini-bosses, though I'm not sure I want to be drinking the dark juice. This fight is really unique. You're basically fighting a dark clone of yourself, and he can do anything you can do except he does it way cooler. I mean, just look at the way he jumps on your sword. Because he's copying all of your moves, it makes it really difficult just to get a hit in since he's gonna parry all of your attacks. I also really like how he starts the fight very passive, not even really attacking you, but as you damage him more and more, he gets darker and gets a lot more aggressive as the fight goes on. It's just a really cool boss fight. Even the room that you fight him in sets the tone really nicely. You have this calm and tranquil environment where you're just having a nice walk through until you realize the door on the other side is locked, and only when you turn around do you even see the dark doppelganger. I saw a lot of comments online saying you can defeat him easily by using the hammer since he doesn't have one of those and he can't counter it. But that really wasn't working for me, he just kept blocking me each time. Deku nuts and arrows were also not doing anything as well, but Din's fire is a really good way of dealing with him. He has no way to block this attack, so it's pretty much gonna connect every single time. That said, even with a full magic bar, we still didn't have enough uses to finish him for good, so for the last few hits, I pretty much just spammed attacks. I found it helps to not Z-target him and instead just attack freely. He's still gonna get a few attacks in, but by this point we've done so much damage with Din's fire, there's no way he'll be able to outlast us. And once he's defeated, we can move on to the next room where we find this temple's new tool, the long shot. This upgrades our hook shot, so now it can extend twice as far, which is pretty underwhelming, but we did also get the iron boost before this, so it's not too bad. And now that we have it, we can make our way to the boss of the temple, the giant aquatic amoeba known as Morpha. He attacks us by grabbing us with his tentacles and tossing us across the room, which we have to avoid because our retro achievement for this fight is to do it without falling into the water or getting caught by the tentacles. Which at first I thought was going to be really easy. You can clearly see where the tentacles are coming from, so just stand out of the way and you're fine. But as you get into the fight, he eventually gets a second tentacle which caught me off guard. But this one's not too bad as far as difficulty goes. The tentacles are very telegraphed and take a long time to actually attack you, so you have plenty of time to get out of the way. You just have to pay attention and not get blindsided by one. What makes it annoying is we have to use the hook shot to grab the nucleus out of the tentacle so we can damage it, which can be really annoying to do because it moves around so much. The best thing to do is to try to get in front of the tentacle, that way you have a better chance at connecting as it's coming towards you instead of trying to grab it from an angle when it's moving side to side. I was also only able to get in one attack each time before it bounced away. You can definitely get in more attacks if you're more aggressive or if you can trap it in a corner, but because we're trying to do this without getting caught, I wanted to play it safe, so I took my time. And I really like how the achievement popped at the perfect moment after dealing the final blow, during the cutscene right as the final drip of water hits the ground. I don't know if it was just dumb luck or if the achievement developer purposely designed it this way, but I really like just how perfectly timed that was. And as you probably guessed, Princess Gerudo ended up being the sage of the water temple. Man, we're just never gonna have that wedding, are we? But she gives us another medallion for our collection, so now we're 3 down and just 2 more to go. And with the curse broken from the water temple, things are going back to normal. The lake is full of water once again, and now we can go back to Zora's domain to play our favorite diving minigame. Wait, what? Why is it still frozen? Yeah, turns out it takes time for ice to melt, so I guess the Zora are gonna have to wait to come home for a bit. But now that the lake is back to normal, we can pick up a new item if we fire an arrow into the rising sun. And I never realized this, but it turns out you actually don't need these fire arrows to beat the game, which is a fun fact, but we do need them for achievements, so we'll grab them anyway. And speaking of achievements, I wanted to take a break from crawling through temples to make some progress on some side quests. So I went back in time to our childhood and caught up with this running man who can be found running around Hyrule Field. And once he finally stops to rest, I sell him my bunny hood to complete the mask salesman quest. This guy loves the bunny hood so much that he literally fills your wallet, but I already had close to my maximum amount of rupees I can hold, so I actually lost 10 rupees here. But hey, at least we got an achievement for finishing up the quest. We also got the Mask of Truth for doing this side quest, which nobody seems to really like. Even Saria's not a fan of it. But if we take it to the Deku stage, they find the mask so ugly that we're given the final Deku Nut upgrade. Come on guys, it isn't that bad. We also get these other character masks now too, but these don't really do anything. But it is cute to see the different reactions the Deku scrubs will give us. Next I headed back to Kakriko village to start another side quest, but we found the town on fire as an evil spirit that's been released by Ganondorf is wrecking havoc. Sheik tells us that Impa went to the Shadow Temple that's located in the back of the graveyard to try to seal this spirit away, and then teaches us the Nocturne of Shadow so we can fast travel there. And until that spirit is defeated, the town is stuck in an endless thunderstorm. Oh brother, you're still mad? It wasn't even me this time, come on! Before we could take on the Shadow Temple, we'll have to go back in time and do a bit of a time paradox. Because now the angry guy is all happy because this is before some kid with an ocarina played the Song of Storms. But the thing is, I wouldn't know this song if he didn't teach it to me 7 years in the future. But he wouldn't have taught it to me if he didn't hear it 7 years ago. But he didn't hear it 7 years ago until now? But I only know it because he knew it? Man, I hate time travel. But playing the Song of Storms drains the water in the well, and now we can head down there for another little mini dungeon before the temple. And this dungeon likes to prank us with all these invisible holes in the floor. And every time you fall down one, you gotta go all the way back up just to fall in another invisible hole. I gotta say, my favorite emulation feature has to be the ability to fast forward the games. I think all game consoles should have a double speed feature. That would solve so many problems. Once we make it through this dungeon, we'll get an item that lets us see the invisible holes, but first we'll have to fight this nightmare fuel abomination. Like damn, I know this is supposed to be the spooky dungeon, but they didn't have to try to traumatize us. After we beat this thing, we get the Lens of Truth, which allows us to see through the invisible holes as well as other invisible items. Like this chest, which has a huge rupee, which is useless because my wallet's already full. I guess I should start spending some of this money, so I bought a sword from this Biggoron for 200 rupees. It does double the damage of the Master Sword, but I only had it for a few seconds before it broke on me. Man, screw this guy and his cheap 3D printed garbage. If we want a real Biggoron sword, we have to talk to this guy who lives on top of Death Mountain. But of course we can't simply buy a sword from him, we first have to complete a very long trading side quest. It starts by waking up Talon with a Kuko that hatched from the egg that Anju gave us earlier. That makes the Kuko happy, and Anju sees that we're good at handling Kukos, so she gives us Kojiro, a blue Kuko that belonged to her brother. So now we have to go all the way to the Lost Woods to track him down, and when we find him, we give him his Kuko back, and he asks us to deliver an odd mushroom to the lady in the potion shop in Kakariko village. So now we have to go all the way back, except this time the mushroom has an expiration date, so we have to make it there in under 3 minutes. We give the lady the mushroom and she turns it into some medicine, which won't work on a monster, but that's fine, it's not like he turned into a monster in the last 3 minutes. Okay, so it turns out anyone who gets lost in the forest turns into a monster, so yeah, he's gone now. So we give the medicine to this Kokiri girl in exchange for his poacher's saw. So now we have to go all the way to the Gerudo desert to find the master craftsman who the saw originally belonged to. He gives us a broken Biggoron sword in exchange because that's totally a fair trade. Then we have to climb all the way back up Death Mountain to have the Biggoron fix the sword, but first he needs his eye drops. So now we have to take his prescription all the way to Zora's domain. But the Zora King doesn't have the eye drops, he only has the ingredients to make the eye drops, so we have to take that all the way to Lake Hylia once again before it expires. Oh, and you can't fast travel during these, so you better hope Epona cooperates when jumping over those fences. We give the frog to the guy in the laboratory and he gives us the eye drops, which we again have to take to the Goron before time runs out. To save time, we go from the lake to the Kokiri forest, then take a shortcut to Goron City through the Lost Woods. Then we take the shortcut to Death Mountain Crater behind Darunia's office, and then we go through the crater up to the top of the mountain. Then we give the Goron his medicine, so now he can work on our sword. He gives us a receipt and tells us to come back in 3 days. So now we just stand here and wait like it's 2007 and we're camping out at Best Buy for a Black Friday sale that's actually worth waiting for. And then after 3 days, we finally get the Biggoron sword. But all that waiting was worth it because this thing not only does twice the damage of the Master Sword, but it has a huge range as well. The drawback is you can't use your shield because you need 2 hands to wield it, but just don't get hit and you don't have to worry about it. And now that we're equipped with the best sword in the game, we head to the Shadow Temple to try it out, and it's the perfect weapon for keeping this abomination away from us. I'm gonna need this guy to stay at least 10 Biggoron swords length away from me. What's interesting about this temple is we get our new item very early, so we get to use it for the majority of the temple. With these hover boots, we can walk on the air for a short period, which lets us cross bigger gaps. And later in the temple, they have these fans that blow air, which lets you go even further, which I really like, because as cool as the hover boots are, they aren't really utilized much outside the temple. I wish I could say the same for the Lens of Truth, but honestly, this has to be my least favorite item in the game. It's fine while we're in the Shadow Temple, you kind of expect to be using it a lot here, but outside the temple, every time I get stuck and realize the solution was to use the Lens of Truth to spot something invisible, I feel like it's a bit of a sucker punch. There is a mini game that you can play where you have to open a series of chests and you can use the Lens of Truth to cheat and find the correct one, and I really do like that one. That's a very clever use of the Lens of Truth. But the rest of the time, it just feels like a cheap shot. But at least once we make it to the boss, our Retro Achievements challenge is to defeat him without using the Eye of Truth. I thought this was going to be the most difficult one at first, especially since we have to avoid getting grabbed by him. But this one's a lot easier than it sounds. All you have to do is stun both his hands with an arrow and then shoot in between them. His body is so big that even though you're shooting blind, it's still pretty easy to hit. I was playing this one super sloppy, and I even died once and got revived by a fairy, but the only thing we can't do is get grabbed by him. We can still take damage, so really the boss fight wasn't that much different from a normal one aside from not being able to see him. And once we deal the final blow and finish him off, we got our achievement, and that wraps up the Shadow Temple. We meet Impa in the Chamber of Sages and learn that she's the 5th sage of the Shadow Temple, so now we have 5 medallions and we just need 1 more before we can take on Ganondorf. So I didn't want to waste any time and headed right over to the next temple, which is located in the Gerudo Desert. But on the way there, we spotted a big Poe. There's 10 of these guys scattered all across Hyrule Field, and we have an achievement for finding them all. So I decided to go hunt them down. Once you destroy a Poe, you can capture it in an empty bottle, and then you bring them to this guy who's taken over the jar room in Hyrule Castle. He'll buy a big Poe for 50 rupees, and we'll get a prize for delivering all 10 of them. The big Poe do appear in the same locations each time, so it doesn't take too long to track them down. And it's a lot of fun chasing them around while shooting them with arrows. And once we deliver all 10 of them, we actually get 2 achievements. One for delivering all 10 of the Poes, and our prize for doing so is another empty bottle, which happens to be our last one, so we got an achievement for getting all 4 of those as well. And now that we're done ghost hunting, we make our way to Gerudo Valley, where we have to sneak around the thieves' hideout and avoid getting captured like these guys. But I mean, I don't know, man. I personally wouldn't mind being a prisoner here. I think these guys are just cowards. I also never knew this, but you can just take out the guards with arrows. I don't know why I never thought to try this. It makes sneaking around a lot easier once everyone's dead. After we free all the prisoners, the head girl boss of the Gerudo is so impressed with our skills that she gives us a hall pass to freely walk around the fortress. And since all those carpenters are free, they're able to rebuild the bridge, so now we can have a race with the running guy who we sold the bunny hood to 7 years ago. We have to race him to the bridge in the Lost Woods to the Kokiri Forest. And we have to do it in under 1.5 minutes for an achievement, which isn't too difficult, but Epona almost cost me the achievement because she decided she wanted to randomly stop here. But I was still able to make it in time for the achievement. We still lost the race though, and the truth is we were doomed to fail this race because even if you use mods to get there in 0 seconds, this guy would still be here and claim that he got there right before you did. I wonder how many people playing this game tried everything they could to win this only to never realize it was rigged all along. Back in the Thieves' Hideout, since we're now allowed access, we can play the horse riding minigame where we have to shoot targets for points while riding on Epona. And the first round's easy enough, we're shooting for 1,000 points and we get a piece of heart for doing it. But our second prize, we need to get a score of at least 1,500 points. And that does not leave a lot of room for error. There's 7 pots you can hit, each worth 100 points, so once you get the timing down for that, it's a great start, but that still leaves only 13 arrows left to make up the rest of our points. And hitting the targets is so much harder than hitting the pots. And I wish I had some pro gamer tips and tricks I can share, but really this one's just something you have to practice. It took me a very long time. This was honestly the hardest minigame in the run. I started with almost a full wallet and each game cost 20 rupees to play, and by the time I finally got it, I was down to 180 rupees. But once we finally got it down, we got an achievement and a quiver upgrade, so now we can hold more arrows. The last thing we can do here is the training grounds. It's a series of challenges like defeating enemies or solving puzzles, sometimes with a time limit. And I like that there's a variety of challenges that make you have to utilize all the different items you've acquired over the game. But we did come across a room where we need an item that we don't have yet, so we'll have to put a pin in this for now and come back later. So for now, we'll make our way through the desert towards the Spirit Temple. We were told to follow the flags and not get lost, but I was tempted by this sign pointing us towards a shop. But this guy wouldn't tell us what he's selling, so I bought the mystery item for 200 rupees, and it turns out it was just Bombchus. We just paid 200 rupees for some Bombchus. Now I know why the Gerudo told us not to get sidetracked. After we make it through the desert, we arrive at the Spirit Temple, where Sheik's here to teach us the Requiem of Spirit, which will allow us to travel back here. And this one's our final song we'll be learning in the game, so that gets us an achievement. And we'll need this song because we can't actually do anything in the Spirit Temple just yet. There's just a hole to the left that's too small for us, and then another giant block to the right which we can't move without another item. So we need to travel back in time and come back here as a child. And when we do, we meet this Gerudo lady named Naboru, who is against Ganondorf and is looking for a way to stop him. She asks us to crawl through this hole and find the silver gauntlets for her, and says she'll do something great for us if we succeed. And there's just something kind of insane about Child Link taking on all these adult enemies, though to be honest, the boomerang stunning them makes them even easier to deal with than adult Link. There's also more wall skulltulas here, but I actually learned something about them that I had no idea about. If you aggro them, you can just stand still and they won't attack you. I went this entire game not knowing that, and it kind of trivializes the challenge I've been doing. This whole time I thought you had to avoid them spotting you. Oh well, I'm in too deep now, so we're gonna keep up this bit and use a Bombchu to blow up the wall without harming the wall skulltulas on it. And I'm amazed I pulled that off on the first try, so this is still a deathless run for the wall skulltulas. We have a mini boss encounter with this Iron Knuckle enemy who doesn't engage you until you attack it first, so I took the opportunity to line up some Bombchus, and I thought it'd be funny to try to defeat him that way, but he tanked like 7 Bombchus without breaking a sweat. Man, they really be making Child Link deal with the biggest enemies in this temple. But once we defeated him, we make our way outside where we find the Iron Gauntlets. But before we can deliver the goods and claim our reward, Naboru gets captured by these 2 witches who work for Ganondorf. So I guess these are our Iron Gauntlets now. And now that we have them, we can go back and finish the training grounds back at the Thieves' Hideout. And I got stuck in here because I was missing one more key, and I ran around this place a dozen times trying to find it. You wanna know where it was? Behind an invisible hole in the ceiling. My fault for not equipping the Lens of Truth in every single room and looking all around me. But once we finally found that, we're able to get the prize, which are the ice arrows, which we will never use. I don't even know the purpose of these things. At least the fire arrows, you can use them if you don't feel like using Din's fire, but as far as I know, the ice arrows serve no purpose in this game. Now that we're back in the Spirit Temple as an adult, we can make our way through the rest of it. And after another fight with an Iron Knuckle, we get a second item in this temple, the Mirror Shield, which not only looks really cool, but it lets us reflect light, which we can use for some of the dungeon's puzzles. It's another cool item that unfortunately has no real use outside this temple, but we do get to use it during the boss fight. But before we get to that, we have one more Iron Knuckle fight, which Navi says there's something off about this one. Which is actually a really nice subtle foreshadowing, because if it wasn't for that, there's no way to tell that this isn't an ordinary Iron Knuckle until we defeat it and it turns out it's Naboru inside the armor being brainwashed by the witches. I wish I could say we saved her, but she got zapped the second she was free, so I guess we really aren't ever getting that reward she promised us. Now it's time to take on these witches and get our revenge, and this one's the easiest retro achievement yet. We just have to avoid falling off the platform. So for all intents and purposes, this isn't really much different from a normal boss fight, which is a bit underwhelming, but I really do like this fight because we get to make use of that mirror shield. During the first phase, we have to redirect their attacks towards the opposite witch, so the fire attacks need to hit the ice witch and vice versa. And once we damage them enough times, they combine into one giant lady, and this time we have to catch 3 of the same attacks in a row. And once we have 3 of them, we can shoot a beam back at her and then rush over to deal some damage. This isn't the most difficult fight, but it is fun using the mirror shield like this, and I wish we got to use the mirror shield more in this game. And once we deal the final blow, we get our achievement and we're officially done with the Spirit Temple. And Naboru ends up being our final sage, and she gives us our final medallion. And now that this is our last one, we're ready to take on Ganondorf. Back at the Temple of Time, we meet Sheik, who reveals that he's actually Princess Zelda. She's been in disguise this whole time hiding from Ganondorf, which was a great plan, but the second she revealed herself, Ganondorf trapped her in a giant rupee. Yeah, maybe we could have done this reveal somewhere a little more private. And my wallet's too full, so I can't even do anything as she's taken away to Ganon's castle. But at least she was able to give us the light arrows before she was captured, so we're able to get an achievement. And speaking of achievements, Zelda's gonna have to wait a little while longer because now it's time to finish the rest of these up. We have a lot of things we have to collect, starting with the fairy fountain outside the spirit temple where we get Nehru's love. This one shields us from damage, so it's pretty useful, though at this point the game's almost over and we have so many hearts, so we don't really need it. Next, I decided to track down all the stone statues. You've probably seen these things if you played this game, but if we talk to them while wearing the Mask of Truth, they give us little lore bits and fun facts. Some of these are really hidden well too. One of them is behind the Great Deku Tree and we have to do a little bit of parkour to get there. I didn't even know you could get behind the Deku Tree, so that was kind of cool to see. For an achievement, we have to talk to all 32 of these in a single session, which is a bit annoying. I mean, some of them are funny, so I like the idea of an achievement that encourages you to do this, but most of them aren't all that interesting, so it's a bit of a chore to get to all of them. A user on Retro Achievements shared a good checklist to help keep track of them, which I'll have linked in the description for anybody else hunting these achievements. And you'll have to run all over Hyrule hunting these down, so once again, shout out to fast forwarding and emulators. But once we talk to all 32 of them, we get the achievement. And look at that, even the Gossip Stones thinks the ice arrows are useless. Next up, I tracked down all the remaining heart pieces, and of course I was using a guide to find the last ones, and I gotta give a big shout out to IGN for putting their checklist behind a paywall. They want $5 a month just so you can use a checklist to keep track of collectibles, and they wonder why nobody respects game journalists. Thankfully, there's plenty of free guides out there, but I do recommend tracking these from the start because trying to figure out which ones you've already gotten is a lot harder than you would think. Especially since I started playing this game months ago, so I ended up wasting a lot of time rechecking locations I've already been to. There's no good way to track these in-game, so I would highly recommend keeping a checklist from the start. Thankfully, I didn't have too many to go, so I was able to track down the rest of them and get the achievement for finding all of them. And our last collectible hunt is for the rest of the spiders. Fortunately, these do have a way to be tracked in-game, which is very useful because there's way more of these. If you look at the map in the pause menu, to the left of the area's name, you'll see a spider icon if you've collected all of them in that area. So if you don't see the spider icon, that helps you narrow down where to look. If every location on the map has a spider icon, but you're still missing some, that means they're located inside a dungeon or a temple. And when you're in one of those, you can pull up the dungeon map, and again, there will be a spider icon if you found all the spiders in that particular dungeon or temple. So just keep checking them all until you find the ones that you're missing. For me, it was the fire temple that had my last few, and I was so shocked to learn there's an entire room in the fire temple that I had no idea existed. You get to it by hooking onto the scarecrow and then riding an elevator up. There's 2 gold skulltulas up there and a room with a chest containing a big rupee. I've literally done Zelda randomizers before and still had no idea this room existed. So that was a fun discovery for me. And once I grabbed the final spider, we headed back to Kakriko village for our reward, which is more rupees. Oof, yeah, that one kinda sucks. I mean, it is infinite rupees since you can keep talking to this guy, he'll give you as many as you want, but come on, by this point, the rupees are kinda pointless. But I am happy that I can say I finally found all these, which is something I've never done before. Alright, I think we've kept Zelda waiting long enough, so it's time to head to Ganon's castle and finish this story. The sages all get together and create a rainbow road so we can get across and enter the castle. But before we can reach him, we have to deactivate the shield around the center tower, and we do that by visiting each of the surrounding rooms and completing a little challenge. And when we reach the end, we can destroy the barrier by using the light arrows that Zelda gave us. These rooms are like a little mini version of the temples that we visited throughout the game, which is pretty cute. And in the shadow room, we have one final item to find, the golden gauntlets. With these, we have the power to lift these giant stone pillars and toss them aside. And now that we have these, we can step outside for a minute to grab the last fairy fountain upgrade that's hiding behind this stone pillar. With this one, our defense is now doubled, so all attacks do half the damage to us. And I gotta say, it feels really nice having a fully decked out Link. I've never 100% completed a Zelda game before, so this feels really awesome. We have a few fights on our way up the tower to face Ganon, and these guys can barely make a dent in us. So we make our way all the way up the tower to face Ganondorf for the final showdown, and this time it's just a 1v1 battle since he's doing some dark magic shenanigans to keep Navi from helping us. At least that's what the cutscene says anyway. I mean, she's clearly still there during the fight, but I guess we can't get advice from her? Not that we really need it, this fight is similar to the Phantom Ganon fight from the Forest Temple, and in fact, I'd say it's even easier since he doesn't have the other attacks. This fight is basically just a match of Wii tennis as we pass the energy ball back and forth. And once he's stunned, we hit him with the light arrow and move in for some stabbing. And again, our retro achievement challenge is to simply not fall off the platform, which unless you're actively trying to get hit by him, really isn't gonna happen. A bit of an underwhelming final boss if you think about it. Once we deal the finishing blow, we get our achievement, but Ganondorf uses his last bit of strength to bring down the castle, so now we have an epic getaway with Princess Zelda as we dodge the falling rocks, fight the occasional enemy, and make it out of the castle within a time limit. But we're not out of the woods just yet, as Ganon decided he wants to actually try this time and give us a proper final boss, so he transforms into his final form. There's no way he's gonna hold me back again, this time we fight together. Hell yeah, Navi, that's what I'm talking about. Alright, tell me how to beat this guy. Perfect, thank you Navi, I'm so glad you're here to help. Ganon does look really scary, and he starts the fight by knocking your Master Sword out of bounds, but joke's on him, I'm using the Biggoron sword. His weak spot is his tail, so we just have to get around him, and the easiest way to do that is to simply roll between his legs and go under him. And if you do that, you can damage him pretty easily without taking damage. That is, unless you're going for the retro achievements, where we have an achievement for beating him with only one heart left. So we do have to let him beat us up a little bit. So many people complain about damageless achievements that they went ahead and gave us the opposite of that for this one. As stupid as it is, this isn't exactly easy because you do have to do the math pretty quickly to make sure you don't overshoot it. Ganon's attacks do 2 hearts worth of damage if you have the defense boost, and touching the fire surrounding the arena will do half a heart of damage. And then once you're down to 1 health left, it basically becomes a damageless run. If you really want to optimize it, you could wait until he's 1 hit away from dying before getting yourself down to 1 heart left, but I wasn't about to start counting hits while trying to juggle everything else, so I just locked in and didn't take any more damage. If you're too afraid to roll into him, you can also stun him with your light arrows and get your attacks in that way, so it's not too difficult to finish the fight without taking any hits. And once we deal the final blow with Zelda's assistance, the sages open up the door to the evil realm and send Ganondorf away, and we've officially beaten the game. All that's left now to do is to give Zelda back the Ocarina so she can send us back to our original timeline and seal the Master Sword away back in the temple. But not before picking up 2 more achievements, one for beating the game, and one for beating the game and finding every single dungeon map, compass, and boss key. And that's the end of the game, but we still have some achievements left to collect, and to get them, we're gonna have to run through the game a second time, this time doing a 3 heart run where we don't collect any heart containers, and we also can't collect any of the dungeon maps or compasses. Technically, you don't have to do a second run for this, you can do your 3 heart and no maps or compasses run first, then just load your save file back up and backtrack to collect everything. There is that issue of the 1 map in Lord Jabu-Jabu's belly, which I said was missable because you have to use Princess Gerudo to hold down a switch, but there's a glitch you can perform by talking to Navi right as the cutscene of pressing the switch starts, and if you do it right, you can get into that room without Gerudo. But personally, I'm fine doing a second run, it's not like we have to 100% the game again. It was also a good chance for me to stream this game since I did all my recording off stream for this video, so getting to do another run live was a good time. And during this second run, all the achievements we have left are for the boss fights. Well, all of them anyway, except for Queen Gohma, but I guess technically you're always gonna fight her with 3 hearts. Some of the achievements are the same as the first time around, like defeating King Dodongo before he breathes fire and without using the bomb bag. So we just get those achievements in the exact same way as the first time. Baronade was actually a lot easier because we don't have to avoid taking damage this time, we just have to beat him in less than 1 minute and 51 seconds. I even accidentally skipped an entire phase because I was going super aggressive on him, so we got that achievement pretty easily. There's also a trick during the final phase to just let him hit you once so he spends less time underground so you can damage him again. For Phantom Ganon, the achievement is to just do the fight without healing, which again is easier than having to use a bottle. It's honestly a little weird they went easy on these 3 heart achievements because the type of people to do a 3 heart run are probably up for a challenge. Volvagia's challenge is to defeat him only using the Megaton Hammer, which does mean you have to dodge more attacks since you're taking more time to defeat him, so that one's maybe a little bit harder than the first achievement, but we still got it pretty quickly. And then the Morpha fight is technically a little harder because now you can't take any damage at all, so you can accidentally touch a spike on the wall and then that makes you fail, but just don't do that, it's really not that hard. Bongo Bongo isn't too much different, we just have to do it without healing, and still without using the Lens of Truth. This one was probably the hardest one, just because I was having skill issues dodging his attacks, but I did decide to grab the Biggoron sword during this playthrough, so that makes the fight easier. And then we got that achievement after just a few attempts. Twin Rova's 3-heart achievement is to do it while only using the Master Sword and the Mirror Shield, which implies you can damage her with other weapons, which I didn't even know you can do. But this one again just makes the fight take a little longer since the Master Sword does less damage than the Biggoron sword. And finally, our last achievement for the 3-heart run is defeating Ganon without getting hit. A bit boring to end the run on a simple damageless achievement, especially considering at 3 hearts you're pretty much doing this damageless already. But I guess going through the entire game with only 3 hearts is the challenge here. All these secondary boss fight achievements are just a nice little icing on the cake to give you some rewards as you progress. And just like the first time, we can easily avoid taking damage simply by rolling between his legs, so it's not all that difficult. And once we take him out, we got the achievement. And now that we've beaten the game a second time, this time without collecting any hearts, maps, or compasses, we get the final achievement for doing all that, and now we've officially mastered The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, making this my 19th mastery on retro achievements. This game really is one of the greatest video games ever made. It's the kind of game that you're going to sit down to play and before you know it, you've been going all night long and the time has just passed by in an instant. And as far as the achievements go, I think this has to be one of the best achievement sets on retro achievements. It's got a few challenges, but nothing that the average player couldn't accomplish, and it's got just the right amount of progression achievements so that you're still unlocking them frequently and feeling satisfied, but it's not overly bloated with low effort achievements, just to pad the numbers. For me, the hardest achievement in the game is definitely getting the quiver upgrade from the horse shooting minigame. That one really did take me a long time. I'm also really glad to finally be done with making this video. I started playing this game back in August. It was actually one of the first videos I started working on, right after the Banjo-Kazooie video. But it's just such a big game and I really wasn't prepared for the editing process on this one. But over the months, this channel has grown way bigger than I ever imagined, and that really motivated me to stick with uploading a video every week. And over time, I've gotten better at editing and taking on these big videos. And so really, I owe you guys such a big thank you for all the support you guys have given me on this channel. Without you guys, I probably would have gotten burnt out a long time ago, but you guys show up every time I upload and I'm still reading and responding to every comment I get. I love the bits that some of you guys do in the comments, like this guy who's been with me since the first video and just tells me his favorite fast food orders. And now my wife calls every Saturday Juice Day because this person called it that one time, and now they do a Today in Juice Day bit every week. So I really want to thank everybody who watches my videos and leaves comments like these because that really does make my day and it helps keep me motivated to keep making videos every single week. If you guys want to hang out with me live while we do some achievement hunting, then feel free to follow me on Twitch. I try to stream once or twice a week on there when I'm able to, and I also have a VOD channel where you can watch the entire 3-day run. That'll be up a day or two after this video goes live. And of course, if you want to follow me on retro achievements to get a sneak peek at what I'm currently working on, then feel free to follow me on there as well. And lastly, if you want to binge watch more videos like this, I have them all nicely organized in a playlist, and you can find all the links for these in the description. With all that said, that's gonna wrap up today's video, gamers. Once again, I really hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching and supporting my channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.